Jai. Okay, we're continuing our reading of Bhagavad Gita from chapter 9 entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge. Text number 11. So this verse, text 11, so yeah, 9th chapter, text 11. This verse was very often quoted by Prabhupada, so it's quite a famous verse, important verse. Have you got it there, Deepa? 9th chapter, text 11.
Yep, got it. Have it here.
Okay. We can read the Sanskrit. Avajānanti mūḍhāḥ.
Avajānanti mūḍhāḥ.
Mānuṣīm tanum āśritam.
Mānuṣīm tanum āśritam.
Param bhāvam ajānantaḥ.
Param bhāvam ajānantaḥ.
Mama bhūta mahā-īśvaram.
Mama bhūta mahā-īśvaram.
Would you like to read the English translation, please?
Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be.
So this is a big obstacle for people to become Krishna conscious, is that they think when Krishna comes to the earth that he's an ordinary human being like us. And then they may criticize or ridicule, minimize his position. They don't understand that he's a Supreme Personality of Godhead and he's coming in his original spiritual form. They think that anything that has a form is material, but that's a misunderstanding to think that's a wrong calculation. That's like saying 1 + 1 = 3. You know, you made a wrong calculation. Just because Krishna has a form, it doesn't mean it's material. There are forms that are spiritual, that are transcendental. Like, although Krishna was on this earth for 125 years of our time, he never looked older than 16 years old. So that's because his body is transcendental. It never grows old. He's always young. One of Krishna's qualities is he's Nava Yovana, which means Yovan means youth. Yovan means youth. There's different age groups, stages of development in Sanskrit. The first from memory is Polganda. Polganda, I think, means from 0 to 5. And then Kaishur is from 5 to 10. And then, is that 5 to 10? Yeah, something like that. I think 0 to 5, 5 to 10. And then, no, I think I missed out one. And then but Yovana starts 15. It's like 15 years old, or maybe it's 10 to 15. I can't remember. Anyway, it's around youth. It's youth, whatever youth is. So Yovana means youth. So, and Krishna never goes beyond Yovana, never goes beyond youth. Some of his pastimes is like Polganda. He was a little baby, right? And that's when he killed Putana, the witch, and everything like that. And he was on the lap of Mother Yashoda and everything. And then, so that's Polganda. He's got Polganda Lila. And then Kaishur Lila, that's like when he was herding the calves around Vrindavan with his cowherd friends. And he's stealing butter and yogurt and feeding it to the monkeys and everything. So that's Kaishur Lila. And then he has Yovana Lila, when he's dancing with the gopis and everything like that, lifting Govardhan Hill and And then, but he's always Yovana. Even when he leaves Vrindavan, he killed Kamsa. He was still Yovana, youth. You know, he was fighting big demons, Jarasandha and Kalyavana, and then the Battle of Kurukshetra. Battle of Kurukshetra happened when he was more than 120 years old. He was over 120 years old, but he still looked like Yovana, still a youth driving the chariot for Arjuna. So he maintained that youthful look, and the only way that can happen is if the body is spiritual, because any material body, it goes through 6 different transformations: birth, growth, it maintains for some time, it reproduces, and then dwindles, and then death. You know, so a normal material, any material body is going to go through those 6 transformations. But Krishna's body is spiritual. Here she is.
Oh, there she is. Hi.
Hey, Bhaktimala. So far, so good. We're back on track, back in action.
I just was in the car and I thought I'll put on some music because I was just about to go to Bunnings and I saw your message.
Go to Bunnings? Okay.
And I saw your message, so I came back in.
I'm very touched. You sacrificed your trip to Bunnings for us.
Yeah.
That's a real
Bunnings.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
Soul searching over Bunnings.
Yeah.
Krishna won.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just saying, Bhaktimala, we're reading from 9th chapter, text 11. 9th chapter, text 11, and we just read the translation. And this verse is just saying that when Krishna comes to this material world, people criticize him, people deride him, thinking that he has a material form. They don't know that he is a transcendental spiritual form. So Krishna comes in his original spiritual form to the material world. He doesn't assume a material form. He's coming in his original form. He's not changing his form into a material one to come here to perform pastimes. So people with less knowledge, they can't understand that, how God can come here in a spiritual form. But then Prabhupada would ask the question, why are you saying God can't come here in a spiritual form? Is there any restrictions on what God can and can't do? You think about it. What is the definition of God? God is that person that can do anything he likes. He's completely free. If God has any rules on him, okay, you can do this, you can't do that, then that's not God. Whoever's placing those rules, that's God. So God's not under any rules. God makes the rules, and he can even break rules if he wants.
Mm-hmm.
He can even break rules if he wants. So, and he's not under the rules like that. Like one of the rules we're under is you can't dance with, you know, women that aren't your wife in the middle of the night. But Krishna can. You can't lift a mountain with your little finger of your left hand or any hand. That's the rule. You can't do that. But Krishna can. You know, so Krishna's not under any rules. If he wants to come here in his original spiritual form to the material world, he can. Who's to say he can't like that? So that's what God is. He can do anything he likes. As in the Sanskrit, it's called swarat. Swarat means independent. Independent. He's not dependent on anything or anyone. He can do whatever he likes. Actually, this is what India wanted to do when it was under the control of the British. It wanted to get independent from the British, and that was called Swaraj. Swaraj, similar meaning. Swarat means independent. Swaraj means also the same thing, to be independent from the British. So their idea was India would rule itself, not that the British would rule Indians, but Indians would rule Indians. So that was a battle they had for many decades to get Swaraj, and Gandhi was, of course, very much involved in getting Swaraj. Of course, it didn't really help too much, because although they became independent from the British, they didn't become independent from other crooked Indian politicians. So now they're facing a different set of problems, and there's still so many problems in India. And and even if you get free from some political party or whatever like that, but you're not independent, not free from birth, repeated birth, from old age, from disease, like death, like that. Like that. So there's no real freedom. But Krishna's the only one that's always free. He's never under the control of birth or old age or disease or death. He doesn't suffer from, like now I've got a bit of toothache. Even though I've just been to the dentist a few months ago, now it's still after me. It's not letting me go. So I got a bit of toothache again. I have to do something about that. I'm just sucking on.
You gotta come again. You gotta come and see Aniket again.
Yeah, you gotta come back.
I'm not free. They're not letting me go. I must have made some offences before, and now I have to suffer for that. It's probably all the creatures I have to deal with in the garden are taking revenge on me. Not surprising. So only Krishna's free from all these things. He doesn't have any limitations. He can do whatever he likes, like that. So, but people that don't have this higher knowledge of Krishna consciousness, then they can't understand that. They think, oh, he has a head and 2 arms and 2 legs and 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth. He must be just like me. I grow old, so Krishna must grow old. I get tooth problems. Krishna must get tooth problems. I'm lusty after the opposite sex. Krishna must be lusty after the opposite sex. I get angry. Krishna must get angry. So we compare Krishna to ourselves. That's often what people do when Krishna comes to the world. They think, Krishna's dancing with beautiful women. He must be lusty like me because I like to do that. No, but there's a different reason why Krishna's doing that. Do you know why Krishna was dancing with all those coward girls? What was the real reason? It wasn't lust, that he had a burning desire to satisfy his senses, his genitals, with beautiful girls. That wasn't the reason. What was the reason?
Was it because it was something that they wanted? Wanted? So
yeah.
right?
And if Krishna is trying to please them, what do we call that? When you're trying to please yourself, we call that lust. When you try to please your own senses, that's the definition of lust. But when you try to please the other person's senses, what do you call that?
Service?
Yeah, that's correct. And service is what? What is service? Showing us that we have some for someone. Love. Yeah, service means love. So that was love, that, they all those thousands of beautiful girls all had the same desire to have Krishna as my husband. So Krishna fulfilled their desire. I just heard Prabhupada actually say that the other day on a lecture. He said, Krishna didn't dance with their material bodies. Can you believe it? Krishna did not dance with their material bodies. Prabhupada said their material bodies were asleep with their husbands because they were married, coward girls, gopis. Gopi means married coward girl. Manjari means unmarried, before marriage. So Manjari would be like, below 10, 11, 12 sort of thing. And Gopi would be above like 12, 13, whatever like that. Traditionally, of course, in Vedic culture, the girls would get married very young, before puberty. So then their minds are peaceful. They've already got a husband before their sex desire comes. So it's a very scientific system, very intelligent. And no, ladies don't have to go through all the frustration and that of modern day society. And they're all gopis, they're all married. But Prabhupada said the material bodies of the gopis were sleeping with their husbands. So when Krishna played his flute, the gopis came to him in the forest in their spiritual forms. How about that? So Krishna was dancing with the gopis in his spiritual form, with the gopis in their spiritual forms. So they're actually his eternal associates. When Krishna comes to the world, he doesn't only come in his spiritual form, but he comes with his eternal associates. So his father comes from the spiritual world with him. His mother comes from the spiritual world with him. His friends come from the spiritual world with him. The girlfriends come from the spiritual world with him. And they all have these loving pastimes together. So they all had this desire to have Krishna as their husband. So Krishna fulfilled their desire. So that's love. You know, but we think, oh, Krishna's dancing with girls. Just see, he's just like me. He's just a lusty guy like me. See, that's proof. No, it's not proof, because you're a fool, mate. So that's what this verse says. It uses the word mūḍhāḥ. This is, I think, in the first line, avajānanti mūḍhāḥ. So I think of all the words, Sanskrit words Prabhupada used, I think this was the number one word that Prabhupada used, was the word mūḍhāḥ, which means fool. So that's very applicable to us in the material world, that we're fools. Why are we fools? Because we're so ignorant. How is it that we become foolish? Yep, Gita.
Prabhu, can I just for me to understand? So, I mean, when Krishna came to the material world, he never had a material body. He was spiritual, every part of him.
Yeah. Yeah.
The gopis and those who, and then his parents, they had a material, but they had they had a material body.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did. Okay, but sorry, I just like to know the details.
They had a material body, and they were born as like we're born. Most of them were born like we're born. Radharani's an exception. She didn't have an ordinary birth. She was, I'm just trying to remember, her father, King Vrishabhanu, are you still there? Your pictures are frozen. You still there? Can hear?
Here.
Yeah. Can hear? Okay. Your picture just froze for a minute. Now it's free again. King Vrishabhanu, her father, was out walking one day, and he went to a lake, and he saw a little golden baby on a lotus flower, and he picked up the baby. That was Radharani. So she doesn't have an ordinary material body. Her body's spiritual. But the other gopis, they took birth as normally would, in bodies and material bodies and stuff like that. And like Sita, for example, Lord Ram's wife, Sita, King Janak, her father, King Janak, was out ploughing the field. He was out ploughing the field, and this beautiful girl popped out of the field when he was ploughing the field. So he just picked up the baby, and that was Sita. She just appeared from the field when he was ploughing the field. So the main consort of the Lord, has a completely spiritual form, like that. And when Radharani when she appeared, she couldn't see. She was like blind. She couldn't see. And they were, of course, in great anxiety about that. But when they took baby Radharani to Krishna's home to get blessings from Krishna's parents and like that, because Krishna was just a young child at that time. He was a little bit older than Radharani. So when they took King Vrishabhanu took Radha to his house, and when Krishna looked at Radharani, she opened her eyes for the first time. So that's indicating that Radharani only sees Krishna. She doesn't see any men other than Krishna. She's only got eyes for Krishna. That's real love.
Literally, it's so nice.
It's the first time she opened her eyes was just to look at Krishna's face. It's amazing. You know, but people don't have this knowledge. You know, they're ignorant, and they think, oh, look, he's got a material body. No, that's a big mistake, mate. You know, so we make these mistakes, foolish mistakes, because of a lack of knowledge. So what's the solution to our foolishness?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. We need knowledge. So why do we do soul searching? You know, to get this knowledge. You know, why do we hear Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita like that? Is to get this knowledge. And then the idea is we won't be fools anymore. We won't make these foolish mistakes and think Krishna's an ordinary person. Because if you think Krishna's an ordinary person, then, sorry, mate, you're coming back again. You know, you have to keep coming back again to the material world, another birth, old age, disease, and death, until you understand that Krishna is transcendental. So let's look at another famous verse about the subject, 4th chapter, text 9. This is very important verse for understanding what do we need to know to get back to the spiritual world, to get liberated, to go back to the spiritual world. 4th chapter, text 9. This is the minimum. This is the minimum criteria of what you need to know to go back to the spiritual world.
One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna.
It's breaking up again. Your voice and your picture's frozen. Working again? Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna.
Seems like back in action.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Okay, that's good. But you see what I mean? This is very important. This is the minimum knowledge we need. We need to know that Krishna's appearance and his activities are transcendental. And if you know that, then when we die, we say leaving our body. What does leaving your body means? It means death. So when you die, then you won't take birth in the material world again, but you're going to come, but attains my eternal abode. So where's that? That's the spiritual world. That's Vaikuntha. That's Goloka Vrindavan, where Krishna lives, is called Goloka Vrindavan, the planet of the cows. So you'll go there if you know that Krishna's birth is transcendental and his activities are transcendental. So what is transcendental about his birth? Do you know, who can tell quickly how Krishna appeared? How did he take birth? Did he get pushed out of Devaki's womb? Going wah, 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 wah.
No.
Was he screaming and covered in blood and pushed out of Devaki's womb? Who knows that? How did he appear?
I only read it the other day and I can't remember the whole thing, but he came out of something. He just appeared and he had all his crown and he
was fully dressed and with ornaments and clothes and everything.
And,
full size.
Yeah.
Full size. With 4 arms. How many children have you seen born with 4 arms? It's actually said he manifested first in the heart of his father, Vasudeva. So Krishna manifested in the heart of Vasudeva, and Vasudeva started to glow. And then Krishna transferred from the heart of Vasudeva to the heart of Devaki. And then she started to glow like 1,000 suns. And then Kamsa was seeing them both in the jail, because they were in Kamsa's jail, glowing like the sun. And he realized, oh, I'm up the shithole. That God's come now. I'm coming to the end of the line. That's glowing so much. And then he came out of Devaki's heart, not from her womb. He came out from Devaki's heart. He just stood there in front of them, full size, with 4 arms, Lord Narayan, with blue skin. And how many children have you seen born blue? And blue and full yellow dhoti and all jewels and ornaments and earrings and bangles and everything, and a avajānanti garland, like a big garland of flowers and everything, and chakra, maize, lotus flower in the hands and everything like that. and conch shell, and then Devaki and Vasudeva offered prayers to him like that, and he was very pleased, and they spoke. And then Devaki and Vasudeva said, look, we're super scared that when Kamsa sees you like this, he's going to know you're God who's destined to kill him. And we're going to be afraid that he's going to kill you. So because out of their love for him, they couldn't understand that he's invincible and immortal and eternal and everything like that. They had this motherly love for him. So they said, can you please turn yourself into looking like a more ordinary child? And so then he transformed himself to a little cute baby, but still looking a bit different because he's blue. But he transformed himself to a little baby. And then he asked, because it obviously wasn't a safe environment for him in the prison. So he asked, can you, he told his father, Vasudeva, you take me over to Vrindavan, to Nanda Maharaj's village, to Nandagowan. Take me over there. So then by Krishna's mystic power, the locked gates just opened. And by Krishna's more mystic power, all the guards fell asleep. So the guards fell asleep, the locked gate opened, and then it was dark night. He appeared at midnight. That's when we celebrate Krishna's birth. Krishna Janmashtami is always at midnight, so he appeared at midnight. And then so after midnight, that's when they went over. So it was fully dark, and it was heaving rain. And the Yamuna, when they crossed the Yamuna, it had swelled up because of the rain. But the Yamuna, out of respect for Krishna, all just parted way and created like an alleyway through the Yamuna. You can't do that. I mean, how can you walk through the Yamuna in the middle of the night? You'd be dead, mate. But the Yamuna just parted way, and there was a nice alleyway. And then Anantasesha, Krishna's Balaram's expansion, Anantasesha, which is a many-hooded serpent, formed like an umbrella over Vasudeva and Krishna. So it didn't even get wet. So it didn't even get, it was pouring down rain, and it didn't even get wet because Anantasesha was covering them like that. And then Krishna was, after Yashoda had also given birth at that time. Yashoda had given birth, so he went in there, and Yashoda was asleep after the exertion of her childbirth. So Nanda Maharaj put Krishna in the lap of Yashoda and took up the female child that Yashoda had given birth to, and he brought the female child back to the prison of Kamsa. And then the gate locked again, and the guards woke up, and then the guards said, oh, they heard the child crying, the female child crying. So the guards told Kamsa that the child's come. So he was super freaked out, and he came there. He got into the prison. He grabbed the female child, and he went to smash the child on the wall right then and there. He was going to just bash the child, even though it's a female, which he was destined to be killed by a male child. But he didn't care. Okay, this is the 8th child. I'm just going to bash it. He'd already killed the previous 7 kids. Well, 6. He killed 6. The 7th was a miscarriage, but that wasn't actually a miscarriage. That was Balaram. So Balaram like disappeared, and he went over to Rohini like that. So it appeared to be a miscarriage, the 7th one. And the 8th one, that was what was destined. The voice Kamsa heard from the sky. He said, the 8th child of your sister will kill you. So he knew it was the 8th one. So he didn't care, even if it's a girl, I'm going to kill it. So when he went to bash it on the wall, the girl child slipped out of his hand. Slipped out of his hand and appeared in the air, and then transformed into Durga. Durga. So with like 8 arms or more, 8 or 10 arms, with a sword and one, a bow and arrows and an axe and everything. So pretty scary form. So Durga was there saying, you try to kill me. But the person that's already destined to kill you has appeared already somewhere else. So basically telling him that you're up the creek, mate. Your time's up. And then she disappeared. So after prophesizing that the cause of his death had already appeared somewhere else, and then she disappeared. And after that, she became famous. That was the first time Durga had manifested herself there at that time in the material world. So after that time, she became famous with many names: Kali, Durga, Parvati. You know, she has so many names. Maya, like that. So, and she became famous as the younger sister of Krishna, like that. And there's another very esoteric pastime, which some of the acharyas talk about, that when Vasudeva took baby Krishna to Nanda Maharaj's place, he showed his place to leave him there and take the girl child, Durga. So I said that he took the girl child, but what I didn't say was that some acharyas say that Mother Yashoda gave birth to two children. One was a boy and one was a girl. So actually that boy was Krishna. Actually Mother Yashoda gave birth to Krishna. And that Krishna, born from Mother Yashoda, merged into Vasudeva Krishna, who was brought across from the prison of Kamsa. So that actually, who appeared in the prison of Kamsa wasn't technically Krishna. That was a Narayan form. That was called Vasudeva. So that was actually Vasudeva was born in the prison, appeared in the prison. And the original Krishna was born in Vrindavan from Mother Yashoda. And that Vrindavan Krishna merged into the Vasudeva Krishna and then went back to. So that's a bit of a mind bender, an extra bit of pastime. But you can see it's all transcendental. It's all spiritual. These things don't happen in ordinary material life. These are beyond the material world. So transcendental means, what does that mean? It means beyond the material world. It's happening from a place beyond the material world. That's called transcendental. From beyond, transcend means above. So this is happening from a realm above the material world. So Krishna's coming from above the material world, and he's doing the transcendental activities here. So even though he's coming from the spiritual world, when he comes here, he's bringing his spiritual activities with him, his spiritual forms, spiritual activities. So everything's beyond, Like I said, you can't lift a mountain with your hand, so that's transcendental. You can't, when Krishna danced with the gopis, thousands of gopis, and he expanded himself, so he was dancing with every gopi at the same time. That's transcendental, and also every gopi could only see Krishna dancing with her, because you don't want them to get jealous, right? So they're becoming so happy that Krishna loves me more than the other gopis, and he's dancing only with me. But every gopi was dancing with Krishna, but each one could only see the one with her. So Krishna knows how to turn the ladies on, so he knows how to just make everyone so happy, so that's transcendental. Even a perfect yogi can only expand himself up to 7 times, but Krishna can do it unlimitedly. And if a yogi's expansion, they're doing the same thing with all 7 forms. So it's a lot more limiting. But Krishna's doing different things with all of his forms. When Krishna had 16,108 wives in Dwarka, Narada Muni went to see what he's doing there. So he went from palace to palace. And he was seeing Krishna in every palace, one after another, and doing different things. Well, in one palace, he had a kid on his lap. Another palace, he's playing chess. Another palace, he's being worshipped by his wife. Another palace, he's having a feast. Another palace, he's dealing with management, like that. So he's doing different things in each place. So these are his activities, because this verse is saying his appearance is transcendental. and his activities are transcendental. So everything is transcendental. Even his so-called death, which is no death, was transcendental. So, and devotees don't normally like to talk about that because it's painful. Death is not painful because he doesn't die, but the fact that he left the material world, that's painful when God leaves the material world. Just like when Prabhupada left us in 1977, that's painful. The separation the devotees feel from the spiritual master. And we suffered a lot, even as an ISKCON movement. We suffered so much after Prabhupada left, and we lost a lot of its power and Shakti that was there. The whole movement has struggled so much after Prabhupada left. So like when Krishna leaves, it's a very painful time. Like any great personality leaves the material world, it's a very painful time. We don't normally like to talk about it, but we should see it's transcendental too. Like when just before Krishna left, he was leaning up against a banyan tree. A banyan tree. That's very symbolic. This was after the Battle of Kurukshetra, and after the Yadu dynasty, Krishna's family had killed each other. And Krishna arranged that all of Krishna's family got wiped out before he left, because they're all expansions of Krishna, all of Krishna's children and grandchildren. He had 16,108 wives. Each wife had 10 children. So they're all as good as him. And all of those children had 10 children. So that's a massive family. And they're all like as powerful as God. So can you imagine what would happen leaving all those powerful people on the earth? There could be something worse problem than what he's already created. That is already solved by killing Kamsa and a few demons. There'd just be such a big burden. So he had to remove them. And they're also demigods and persons from the spiritual world. So they had to go back to heaven. They had to go back to the spiritual world. So how are they going to leave? There's no one that can get rid of them. The only one that can get rid of them to make them leave is themselves. So Krishna arranged that they got intoxicated and they killed each other. So that was a big mess. They killed each other. And that's another lesson to us, that the material world is a horrible place. Even you're a devotee, because they're all devotees, right? They're all devotees. They all love Krishna with their heart and soul. And they just ended up, how did they end up their time in the past time in the material world? Killing each other. So Krishna rural farming environment in the forest and everything like that. It's very peaceful in that, but I still got a toothache, so you can't avoid the suffering, so don't think that you can ever be, live happily ever after in the material world. It's not going to happen. We all have to leave. We all have to leave. It's just a matter of when, is it sooner or is it later? It's how you're going to leave, but you're going to leave. Definitely everyone's going to leave, whether you're a devotee or not. So Krishna's teaching us multiple lessons by all these things. So all those devotees had a ghastly departure. But that was Krishna's lesson, You have to get out of the material world. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was the father of Prabhupada's guru, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said the material world, he compared it to being like a latrine. Latrine means a toilet. The whole material world. So you do your business. What do you do with it? What's your relationship with the toilet? Do you stay there for a long time? Read the newspaper and the latest magazine and everything, and be in there and everything. Have a feast in there. No, you just do your business and then you get out. Right? It's not a nice place. You do your business in the toilet and you walk away from it. So the whole material world, he compared it to a toilet like that. And we have to do our business to reawaken our love for God. And then when you reawaken your love for God, then you go back to God. I talked to some Jehovah's Witness one time and I said, what's the essence of philosophy? And they said, there will be an Armageddon. God will come. He'll kill everyone that's not a member of their group, 144,000 Jehovah's Witnesses. He'll kill everyone else. And then he's going to make the world into like heaven on earth. And everyone's going to live, they're all going to live forever. The remaining ones are going to live forever with their families. I said, what? That's your religion? That you're going to live forever on the earth with your families? I said, if you love God, wouldn't you want to live with God? They said, no. I couldn't believe it. I thought these are mūḍhāḥs. Like Prabhupada said, these are mūḍhāḥs. These are fools. if you love God, you want to live with God. Why would you not want to live with God? Why would you want to stay here if you love God? You know, so naturally, if you love God, you want to live with him. So, yeah, so getting back to Krishna's departure, then he was sitting with his back to a banyan tree, and like I said, it's symbolic, because if you look at the beginning of the 15th chapter, let's just quickly look at that. Beginning of the first verse of the 15th chapter. This is talking about the material world, and it's fascinating, the structure of the material world. It's fascinating. What's the example given of what the material world's like? Deepa, would you like to read that?
15:1.
Yeah.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots to upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas." Wow.
Yeah, so the material world's compared to a banyan tree, but interesting, upside down. Why upside down? Because actually the material world starts from up. It means starts from the spiritual world. It begins from the spiritual world. And it begins from up means the most topmost person in the material world is Lord Brahma. So he created it. So he's up. So it's like a tree upside down. So why is it compared to a banyan tree? A banyan tree, it has a very unique feature that it starts off one tree, right? And then it goes sideways, and then it goes down into the ground, and then it roots there. And then it comes up again and goes sideways and goes down again to the ground and goes up again and sideways, down, upside down. So you walked into a forest. You've walked into a forest and you think it's many trees, like hundreds of trees, but it's not hundreds of trees. It's one tree. That was one banyan tree that's gone sideways and down to the ground and created more trees and more trees, but it's all interconnected. It's all interwoven. So that's what the material world is, a banyan tree, because it's very entangling. It's a big network. It's like a whole forest, the banyan tree, but it's just one tree, but it's a whole forest. So if you go in there, you get all lost in there. It's very entangling. And if you try to find out where did that forest begin, where is that original banyan tree, good luck. You won't find it. Where did it start from? So like that, finding out the material world, where did it begin? Like great scientists have tried to think since the beginning of time, how did the universe begin? They still haven't worked it out. Still scratching their head. Oh, I think it began from a big bang. And the other guy says, no, that's a lot of BS. No, it began this way. You know, so they still can't figure out how it began. It's like a banyan tree. You can't trace out where it began. You know, can you figure out when the soul came to the material world even? No, you can't. Forget about it. You're never gonna figure it out. How did we get here? When did we first come here to the material world? You're never going to figure it out. Just forget about it. It's just an entangling network like that, this whole material world of Maya, of illusion. So it's like this banyan tree trying to figure out where it began. You're not going to find out where it began like that. So Krishna sitting with his back to the banyan tree, what does that indicate? He's got his back to the material world. That he's telling us that he's about to leave. By having his back to the banyan tree means you're back to the material world. So he's sitting there with his back to the banyan tree, and there's a hunter in a distance, a hunter, and he's seeing that it looks like a deer's something, backside or something. A deer's backside or something. It's actually Krishna's foot. So he shoots an arrow, thinking he's shooting an arrow at a deer. But it's not a deer, it's Krishna. So the arrow lands near to Krishna's foot. So it doesn't actually even touch Krishna's foot. But materialistic people, why does Krishna do this? Krishna wants to help materialistic people that think he's an ordinary human being like us think that, oh, just see, he died like us. He got hit in the foot by an arrow, you know, like that. But duh, who dies by getting hit in the foot? You know, only Achilles, right? We have that story of Greek mythology, Achilles hitting the heel. That was his weak point, was the heel. He got hit in the foot and then he died. But only Achilles dies by getting hit in the foot. No one else does. And just think, like a few years before, Krishna's body was filled up with arrows in the Battle of Kurukshetra, like a pincushion. His body was like a pincushion a few years before, and he survived that no problem. The Battle of Kurukshetra, all the warriors' bodies were like a pincushion. Like Bhishma, right? Bhishma, you couldn't put a finger in between two arrows on his body. There's no place to even put a finger. There's no place to put a finger even between Bhishma's arrows on his body, right? And he was just lying there on the battlefield for months. Actually, the time between when he got filled up with arrows by Arjuna on the Battle of Kurukshetra was months before he left. And he was waiting for the time when Krishna would be looking into his face at a very auspicious time. And then he just left. So even the great warriors were filled up with arrows. What to speak of Krishna? He was firing arrows on Arjuna's chariot. All those warriors were firing arrows at Arjuna, but they were also firing arrows at Krishna. So Krishna had arrows all over his body. And then a few years later, he dies by getting one in his foot. Oh, come on, give me a break, mate. You know, so that's just an excuse for the materialistic demons. Says, okay, there you go. See, he's an ordinary person like us. You know, so Krishna knows. Okay, you want to see me as an ordinary person. Okay, I'll help you. I'll appear to die like an ordinary person. So then actually the arrow lands near him. Then the hunter comes up to him and sees, oh my God, that's not a deer. I just shot an arrow towards Krishna. And he fell down, offered obeisances to Krishna and offered him prayers. And Krishna said, no, don't worry, mate. That's all part of my plan. That's all part of my plan. And then he just ascended to the spiritual world. He just like floated up in the air and went back to the spiritual world. And that was a sad day for the earth. Because when Krishna left the earth, that's when Kali Yuga began. That's when our bad times really expanded more. When Krishna left is when Kali Yuga really began. So, yeah, this is what we have to know. We have to know that Krishna has the way he is born, the way he acts, and the way he dies, so to speak, is not ordinary. He's transcendental. He's fully spiritual. And just by you knowing those things in truth and tattva, that qualifies you to go back to the spiritual world. So the qualification for you to go back to the spiritual world is knowing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's fully transcendental, he's fully spiritual, all of his appearance and activities. So that should be running around through your brain cells, you know, that Krishna's completely spiritual, transcendental. So we need to know these things. Therefore, it's so important to have full knowledge of Krishna's pastimes. That's why Prabhupada loved the Krishna book so much. You know, Krishna's pastimes, 90 chapters means 90 pastimes. Very important for all devotees. He was so concerned that all the devotees have access to for knowing Krishna's pastimes. He thought he might die any time because, you know, he had to translate the Bhagavatam. He was thinking, I might not live to complete all 12 cantos, and Krishna's pastimes towards the end, the 10th canto. So he even when he was early on days, he just started the Bhagavatam partway through. He wrote the Krishna book, which is a summary of the 10th canto, Krishna's pastime. So he wanted to make sure we have at least that summary of the 10th canto before he left. And actually, when he left, he was just writing the 13th chapter of the 10th canto when he left in November, I think 14th, 1977. He was just finished the 13th chapter, which is Lord Brahma's prayers. So the remaining up to 90, he hadn't done, you know, Krishna's pastimes. So it was lucky he had given that summary of Krishna's pastimes earlier on in the form of the Krishna book. It's such a brilliant book. I used to love reading fantasy books before I joined the Hare Krishnas, because I suppose, you know, we like fantasies because it sort of takes you out of the material world, right? It sort of takes you to this transcendental place, you know, beyond the suffering of real life like that. So, and I just love the Krishna book because it's like a fantasy, but the real beauty of it is it's real, it's true. Like an ordinary fantasy is not real, right? It's just make believe. It's just fictitious. But this is non-fiction. You know, Krishna's fantastic pastimes. It's real. It's completely real. So, and it's so captivating, so enthralling. So, you know, please, you know, we should all be fully aware of Krishna's pastimes right from the beginning to the finale. Like that, very important. So if you haven't got a Krishna book, get a Krishna book. And if you've got a Krishna book and you haven't read it, then get it down off the shelf. Said it should be self-development, not shelf development. We want ourself to develop, not the shelf to develop. Although it is auspicious just having it in your house. Definitely your whole existence is blessed by having it in your house. But you'll be even more blessed if you get it into your head. One time, Prabhupada asked a question to a devotee, and he wanted the answer. And then one devotee said, "Oh, Prabhupada, the answer's in the book." Prabhupada said, "No, I should be in you. You should have the answer, not the answer's in the book. The answer's in the book, but you should read the book and get the answer. So you should know the answer. You know, not just say, oh, it's in the book, somewhere in the book. No, it should be in you." Because this is our number one problem, is that we're mūḍhāḥ, because we're ignorant. You know, because of that, we have to stay in the material world. So yeah, let's go back. We've got 10 minutes. Let's read the purport. Okay, whoever wants to start. So 9:11. Oh, that's not a very auspicious. I just realized that's not very auspicious. That's when the Twin Towers came down, right? So 9/11. And this is like that. This is a heavy duty verse. So this is the 9/11 verse of the Bhagavad Gita. The heavy duty, the coming down into the material world.
You read deeper?
From the other explanations of the previous verses in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. The Personality of Godhead, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation, cannot be a human being. Yet there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he is the original Supreme Personality, as is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. He is the Supreme Lord. There are many. Does someone else want to read, or
I can read like 2 chapters each.
There are many Ishvaras, controllers, and one appears greater than another in the ordinary management of affairs in the material world. We find some official or director, and above him there is a secretary, and above him a minister, and above him a president. Each of them is a controller, but one is controlled by another. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many controllers, undoubtedly, both in the material and spiritual world, but Krishna is the supreme controller, and his body is Satchitananda, non-material. Material body.
Sat means eternal. Chit means full of knowledge, and Ananda means bliss. So that's what Krishna's body is made of. You might say, well, okay, he has a spiritual body. What's a spiritual body? So spiritual body means it's eternal, and it's made up of that eternity and knowledge and bliss. So fully conscious and bliss. Whereas our bodies, it's said, this material body is asat. Asat means opposite, means temporary. Achit means without knowledge, ignorance. And nirananda. Nirananda means misery, suffering. So the opposite to a spiritual body. Asat, achit, nirananda. Whereas the spiritual body is sat, chit, ananda. Yep. Continue.
Material bodies cannot perform the wonderful acts described in previous verses. His body is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Although he is not a common man, the foolish deride him and consider him to be a man. His body is called here mānuṣīm because he is acting just like a man. A friend of Arjuna's, a politician involved in the battle of Kurukshetra. In so many ways, he is acting just like an ordinary man, but actually his body is Satchitananda Vigraha, eternal bliss and knowledge absolute. This is confirmed in the Vedic language also. Satchitananda Rupaya Krishnaya.
Yeah.
I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the eternal blissful form of knowledge. There are other descriptions in the Vedic language also. You are Govinda, the pleasure of the senses and the cows. Satchitananda Vigraham, and your form is transcendental, full of knowledge, bliss, and eternality.
But definitely Krishna has a form, and that is the word Vigraham. Vigraha means form. So definitely, see, people have an idea that spiritual means it has no form. It's like something that sort of floats in the air and you can't see it, you can't touch it. But no, it doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that. So you can have a spiritual form. It's not contradictory. We think it's contradictory. We think because we have this material form, therefore spiritual must be the opposite. That's logically what we're doing, but you can't apply that logic. We're thinking that, okay, now I have this material body, it has a form, so spiritual must be the opposite. So the opposite is no form, but that's not correct. You've applied your logic wrongly. You know, spiritual doesn't mean that, okay, I have a form, it's material, so spiritual must have no form. No, wrong logic. You just did 1 + 1 = 3. You made a wrong calculation. So, but it is the opposite, like I said. Material form is temporary, spiritual form is eternal, material form is ignorant, spiritual form is full of knowledge. Material form is suffering, spiritual form is blissful. So it is the opposite, but opposite qualities to what the material form has.
And
Okay,
we have those qualities too, like in our soul, that without the material,
that spiritual form is within this material form.
Yeah.
So the material body is there, but inside the material body is the spiritual body.
Yeah.
If the spiritual body was not there, this material body would just be lying on the ground dead. You know, the only reason why it's moving and talking and walking and doing all the things is because there is a spiritual form, Vigraha, in there. And Prabhupada gives an interesting example. He says, just like your coat is and pants are made and fitted according to your body, right? You have it, you know, if you've got a medium frame, you get a medium coat. If you've got a big frame, you get a big coat, like that. You've got long arms, you'll get long sleeves, whatever. You know, so he said this body is made according to your spiritual form. That's an interesting one.
Mm-hmm. The general, I mean, what I'm finding in conversations, yeah, people just generally think, I mean, many people have some conception of some, spirituality or God, or there is something higher than themselves, but they think of it as energy, that it's an energy or a light or something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, but then I try to kind of say, but it is said in the Bible, I think, where it says God created man in his image.
Yes.
That should
Yeah.
give me, that's kind of food for thought. What does that mean, And
yeah. That he has a form. Otherwise, why would it say that? But this form is made after his form.
Yeah.
And foolish people also think in terms of anthropomorphic, which is also a wrong idea. Anthropomorphic means...
That's a big word. What's that?
Yeah, it's a big word. What anthropomorphic means is that it's atheistic people that say that religious people concoct in their mind a form of God according to their form. So meaning that this human form is there first, and from that human form we're creating a form for God. So that's called anthropomorphic, where we're concocting in our mind a particular form of God from our own experience, from our own realization. Okay, I look like this, one head and 2 arms and 2 legs, so I'm going to make this God have a head and 2 arms and 2 legs. But it's the other way around. First of all, God had his head and 2 arms and 2 legs, and then from that you've got your head and 2 arms and 2 legs. You see what I mean? So God's form comes first, and from that then we have a form. It's not that we have made up a form of God, from our mind like that. I'm a woman, so I'll make God a woman. Okay, or I'm a man, I make God a man. That's not like that. That's anthropomorphic idea. But no, God has his original form, and this form is made in the image of that form. And Krishna's the original male, so we have a male form, and Radharani is the original female, so we have female form. So those forms are the origin, the source of all these other forms. Bhakti Mala, do you want to read a little bit?
Despite the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna's body, its full bliss and knowledge, there are many so-called scholars and commentators of the Bhagavad Gita who deride Krishna as an ordinary man. The scholar may be born an extraordinary man due to his previous good work, but this conception of Sri Krishna is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Therefore he is called mūḍhāḥ, for only foolish persons consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being. The foolish consider Krishna an ordinary human being because they do not know the confidential activities of the Supreme Lord and his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of complete knowledge and bliss, and that he is the proprietor of everything that be, and that he can award liberation to anyone. Because they do not know Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications, they deride him. Nor do they know that the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this material world is a manifestation of his internal energy. He is the master of the material energy, as it has been explained in several places. Mama Maya Dur He claims that the material energy, although very powerful, is under his control, and whoever surrenders unto him can get out of the control of this material energy. If a soul surrendered to Krishna can get out of the influence of material energy, then how can the Supreme Lord, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the whole cosmic nature, have a material body like us? So this conception of Krishna is completely foolishness. Foolish persons, however, cannot conceive that the personality of Godhead Krishna, appearing just like an ordinary man, can be the controller of all the atoms and of the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. The biggest and the minutest are beyond their conception, so they cannot imagine that a form like that of a human being can simultaneously control the infinite and the minute. Actually, although he is controlling the infinite and the finite, he is apart from all this manifestation. It is clearly stated concerning his yogam āśritam, his inconceivable transcendental energy, that he can control the infinite and the finite simultaneously, and that he can remain aloof from them. Although the foolish cannot imagine how Krishna, who appears just like a human being, can control the infinite and the finite, those who are pure devotees accept this, for they know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, they completely surrender unto him and engage in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord.
So a couple of things here. Prabhupada gives a nice how to say, argument that, and he's quoting from 7th chapter, text 14, which has got one line here, Mama Maya Dharatya, that's 7:14, which is saying that although this material energy is very powerful, if someone surrenders to Krishna, they can overcome the material world, right? So if just by surrendering to Krishna you can get out of the material world, how is it that then you can say that Krishna has a material body? That doesn't make any sense. If just by surrendering to Krishna you can get out of the material world, how can you then minimize Krishna that he has a material body? That just doesn't make any sense. Obviously, Krishna must be spiritual, must be transcendental. And if you surrender to him, then you get out of the material world. You're also going to become transcendental. How are you going to transcend the material world by surrendering to a material person? With a material body, that doesn't work, So Prabhupada's exposing that's really bad logic. So obviously Krishna must have a spiritual transcendental form, and that's why if you surrender to Krishna, then you'll get out of the material world. And another interesting point is that why people have a hard time understanding that how can this little boy Krishna be God? Because they're thinking, how do you mean this little blue boy is controlling the infinitely great universe? That's just mind-boggling, isn't it? Mind-boggling. And and Prabhupada says, although the foolish cannot imagine how Krishna, who appears just like a human being, can control the infinite and the finite. So infinite means very big and finite means very small. So those who are pure devotees accept this, for they know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like that. So that's the thing, you just have to have faith, because you can't understand it with your teeny material brain. How this little blue boy controls, vast universes, creating, maintaining, and destroying everything. So that's one of the reasons why they think that God has no form, because that means it's like this vast energy, right? So the supreme truth must be this, unlimited energy. That's what they speculate in their brain. It must be this vast energy, and but actual fact is that from Krishna's form, everything is being created, everything is being controlled and maintained and destroyed and everything like that. But yeah, it's very difficult to understand from our mind. But that's one of Krishna's names is Adhokshaja. Adhokshaja means he's He's beyond our mind. He's above our mind. He's transcendental to our mind and our senses. He cannot be understood by the material senses. Adhoksajja. Aksha means eyes. So, Krishna can't be understood with your eyes and with your mind and your senses. He's beyond that. Adhoksajja. It means he puts all your efforts to understand him, pushes them down. That's adhoksajja. So you can't understand him that way from your mind and senses. The only way to understand Krishna is by hearing about him with faith from authorities, from the Vedic authorities, from parampara. We have to hear about Krishna with faith, and then by Krishna's mercy, he can reveal himself to us like that. So understanding God, especially in the higher realms of understanding, is by his revelation, when he reveals himself, when he's pleased by our service. So that's why it says that. Therefore, they completely surrender unto him and engage in Krishna consciousness, devotional service to the Lord. So when you engage in service, Krishna is pleased by your service, and then he reveals himself. And then you'll understand how he is the source of all the universes and everything like that. I mean, it's mind-bending, and we accept that. A devotee accepts that. I'm not going to understand everything about Krishna. It's said that even Anantasesha and, first expansion can't fully comprehend Krishna, everything about Krishna, even though he's got thousands of heads and thousands of mouths and everything like that. Isn't it one time there was a complaint to Mother Yashoda that by Balaram and the cowherd boys that Krishna's been very naughty. He's been eating dirt. So Mother Yashoda went and said, Krishna, have you been eating dirt, you naughty boy? We're going to teach you a lesson. And then Krishna said, no, I haven't been eating dirt. It's my friends are trying to get me in trouble. If you don't believe me, then look in my mouth. And she said, okay, open wide. So she looked in his mouth. Wow, just blew every circuit in her brain. Because she saw, what did she see? She saw the whole universe inside of Krishna's mouth. And saw herself in Krishna's mouth, looking inside Krishna's mouth. She saw herself looking in Krishna's mouth, inside Krishna's mouth, and that just shut down her brain, It just exploded all of her circuitry. So that's the thing. Krishna's unlimited, but we can't understand an unlimited form. An unlimited form. We have an idea that a form is limited, right? Okay, it's about 1.8 meters high, by about half a meter wide, by about this thick, and like this, and it's full of blood and mucus and bile and everything. No, but Krishna's form is unlimited. Unlimited. It's the whole universe is inside. When one time there was two times there was a forest fire in Vrindavan. And how did they deal with the forest fire? Krishna just breathed in and just inhaled all the forest fire. So he just sucked it all in his body, And there's just so many miracles with Krishna's form that are just beyond our experience. We can only comprehend things that we've experienced. And but obviously there's Krishna's nature is beyond that experience. We haven't seen a person lifting mountains. We haven't seen persons expanding themselves into thousands of forms and all these different things, inhaling forest fires and having universes in their mouths and everything like that. But yeah, Krishna can do all of that and more.
Is that why in that 4.9 it says one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities? It doesn't say one who understands them.
Yeah.
I mean, because you could know them, but even if you can't comprehend them, it doesn't say that. It just says you just need to know them.
Yeah, you have to know
Yeah.
that Krishna lifted a
Have
hill.
to
You don't
know
have to know
them.
how did he lift it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to know. You don't have to know how he lifted it.
Yeah.
You just have
You
to
just
know
have
that
to
he lifted
know
it.
it.
Yeah, because what we know is that we can't lift it.
Yeah.
We can't lift it, but he can lift it. But you
Yeah.
don't have to know how he lifted it. Oh,
Yeah.
because he had the spiritual energy flowing through us. Don't make up stories, so don't extrapolate things that are not written in the scriptures. So you just repeat that fact, know that Krishna lifted a Govardhan hill for 7 days.
Mm.
You don't have to know how he lifted it. Did his arm get sore or something like that? Or no, you don't have to speculate anything. You just have to know that.
Have to know.
And you have faith that, yeah, Krishna can do it, and I can't do it, but just because I can't do it doesn't mean nobody can do it.
Mm.
Just because I'm, not going to live more than 100 years, that doesn't mean no one can live more. Prabhupada even quoted that even now on this earth, well, he said 50 years ago, he said there's yogis in the Himalayas. Some of them are like hundreds and hundreds of years old. Hundreds of years old. Like that. Even thousands. Even Vyasadeva, right? Vyasadeva, he compiled the Vedas 5,000 years ago. That means he was living 5,000 years ago. He's still there today in the Himalayas. Vyasadeva is still there for more than 5,000 years. There's other kings, there's kings from Dwapara Yuga, the previous age, Dwapara Yuga, that they've been given a mission to repopulate the earth at the end of Kali Yuga, that's Satya Yuga. That means the Kali Yuga lasts for 432,000 years. So they're living for more than that. More than that. I can't live for 100 years. That doesn't mean nobody can live a long time. No, just because I haven't seen that. I only know a few people within my experience, but do you know every single person on the planet, how old they are? No, you don't know. So why are you speculating that you can only live for 100 years? This, the most common people live for up to 100 years, but that doesn't mean there aren't exceptions. And in the Vedas shows us those things. There's people that live for thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, like that. There's one sage that every time Brahma died, which was he lives for 311 trillion Earth years, plus some billions and so forth, 311 trillion years. Every time Brahma died, one hair fell out of his head. This is one yogi, one hair fell out of his head. And when all the hairs fell out of his head, then that's when he would die. So that's a hell of a long life.
Long time.
So it's one sage like that. So there's a lot of things, what the idea of saying all this, there's a lot of things beyond our experience. So we should be honest. So I don't know everything. I should just accept faithfully what I hear from an authority. Whatever the authorities tell me. But don't accept any idiot mūḍhāḥ as an authority, like whatever the stupid government tells you or whatever. They're just mūḍhas. But someone that knows the tattva, the truth, So Krishna knows the truth. The great sages that follow Krishna, like Brahma and Narada and Shiva and, Prabhupada, like that, they know the truth. So we faithfully accept what they say and follow them. So this is the best way to find out things, is by hearing from authorities, not just through your senses. If you're going to try to figure out everything through your mind and senses, good luck, because it's so limited. Best way is by hearing from a proper authority. But you have to find out what's the proper authority and then hear from them faithfully. And then, like I said, in due course of time, you do some service, according to what you've heard from the authority. And then when Krishna is ultimately pleased by his service, he might reveal, so much to you. And then you're going to be fully convinced. Then you'll experience it yourself. Like one day, Prabhupada said to the book distributors, I guarantee if you keep distributing books for the rest of your life, one day you'll turn around to distribute the next book and Krishna will be standing there. At that point, it's not theory anymore. you know, that you're seeing with your senses. God can reveal himself with purified senses. He can reveal himself, you know, and then you can embrace Krishna and touch Krishna and kiss Krishna, you know, and offer food to Krishna and put a garland around Krishna's neck, you know, and dance with Krishna and sing with Krishna and everything. So then you'll have full experience, you know. So, but we've got to start off with this faithfully following the authorities, and then eventually we can have direct experience. I'm not saying you can't have direct experience, but first of all, we have to start with this way, and then eventually we can get the direct experience. And one day you'll be dancing in the spiritual world in your spiritual body with Krishna, and there won't be any doubts at that point. One day you might look in Krishna's mouth like Mother Yashoda and see the whole universe inside there. Yeah. Yeah, I better stop now. But either of you like to say anything? Anything comes to mind?
I think even though this, you know that I've struggled with my chanting the last few months, but I think even being able to get back to chanting my rounds, you know, you do have an experience with Krishna in that way. You know, it might not be like full on transcendental, but it just from your mindset from before you start to after you start and after you finish is just so completely different, and you just, I don't know, it seems to take a lot of your worries away, and I do feel a sense of peace. So I think even as a beginner, you know, chanting, it still has a massive impact on even just the mind and the body and things like that. So
yeah, nice. That's so nice.
Yeah.
You see, even before we experience seeing Krishna, we get so many other experiences, like you said, feel more peace and happiness and relief from different anxieties and stresses and so forth.
Yeah.
So you're getting a lot of experiences along the journey.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a journey, but we should try to stay on the path as much as possible, and definitely Krishna will help us along the way, and we experience that.
Yeah.
You know, we experience that. Krishna helps us.
Yeah. And also that, you know, I think you've said it before, that God helps those who help themselves. And I think the more steps I take towards trying to, you know, improve my spiritual life, then you do feel that reciprocation more so as well. Yeah, in small ways. Yeah.
And when we get these experiences, that encourages us to go further.
Yeah.
You know, when we have some nice experience, then that encourages us to go further.
Yeah.
You surrender to Krishna, and then he helps you, and then that makes you want to surrender more.
Yeah.
Oh, I did that. Okay, I took a little step forward, and Krishna helped me. He reciprocated and gave me some nice experience, and now I want to take another step.
Yeah.
Baby steps. But it's this hearing process is what building our faith to make more steps. This is the most powerful part of the process, is hearing to help go further forward. And then when you hear about the glories of chanting the holy name, then you want to chant. You know, then you want to chant. So yeah. Deepa, you want to say anything?
Actually, just you know, right in the beginning when we were reading that 9:11, and you were talking about how Krishna, I mean, he just eternally was at that 16-year-old age, and I don't know, suddenly this thought or something just popped in my head to say, no wonder everyone's just trying so hard to stay youthful by whatever means that they can, that they, with creams and lotions and operations and whatever, and they just want to remain that youthful.
So why is that? Because that's our nature. Our nature is that we're youthful. The soul is youthful. That's why we're craving for that, maintaining that youth. It's interesting, isn't it? We have that saying, sweet 16. We don't say sweet 15, sweet 17. We say sweet 16. Why sweet 16? Because Krishna is always 16, so that's where it comes from. We also want to be sweet 16, like Krishna. So yeah, that's why that craving there is within us now in this material bodies to be young, because that's our original nature, is to always be young. It's not natural to grow old. That's not natural. That's unnatural. It's not natural to get sick, to get a toothache. That's not natural. It's natural to always be healthy and young and fit as a fiddle, as they say. That's and to be blissful and enlightened. That's what natural is. So yeah, that's indicating what our original nature is, that we're searching for that. And the very fact that human beings search for God indicates that there is God. Why do people of all different races and cultures and everything have always and throughout history searched for God? That's because God is there. I mean, we search for water, and water's there, isn't it? We search for food, and food is there. You don't search for something that's not there, isn't it? We search for so many things, and there's an object there for what we're searching for. So the very fact that we search for God indicates that their God is there. Otherwise, why would you search for something that's not there? So we're searching for that sweet 16 because that's the way we always are originally. And we're trying to fight getting old because it's so unnatural concept, like that. Prabhupada explains, the soul being in the material world is an incompatible situation. Beautiful English, use of English was wonderful. It's an incompatible. The soul and matter is opposite things. Completely opposite. It's incompatible. Like the example Prabhupada gives is oil and water. If you put oil in a glass of water, it doesn't mix. The oil will be there and the water will be there. You can't mix oil and water together. So you put the soul in the material world, it's completely, can't mix it. We're eternal, everything's temporary. We're conscious, everything's unconscious, ignorant. We're blissful, matter is miserable. So that's why you don't feel comfortable in the material world. It's not. You're never going to find real comfort in the material world because you're not compatible with it, like that. So that's tells us a lot if we think deeply about these things. So that's what human life is for, to think deeply about these things. Searching for God and searching for real happiness, searching for youth, and all these things. So we want to search for youth by following the Vedic authority, not search for it with creams and plastic surgery, and that's the wrong path for finding youth, is to cover up the body with plastic surgery and creams and so forth. And a guaranteed that will all backfire. The more you put the plastic surgery will make your body look more horrible in the long run, and the more you put the creams will make it. There's been many evidences of how after years of doing plastic surgery and the creams and everything, it makes the body look even more terrible, like that. It all backfires, so that's the wrong path to the eternal youth that we're craving for. The real cream is called Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The cream of the holy name. And we want to do surgery on our heart. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Anyway, you enjoy your holy days. Remember,
Yeah.
the word holiday comes from holy days. See, even our festivals comes from a spiritual origin. But we forget, isn't it? We forget, oh, I got my holidays. I can drink beer, watch rugby, and eat meat. But actually, originally, they were holy days where you go to a temple or a church or a mosque and you pray and everything, have a festival related to God and everything. These were holy days. But then we forgot the holiness and it just became a holiday.
It's all commercial now.
Money, money, money. You know, it should be Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. But there's a saying Prabhupada said, money, 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 sweeter than honey. That's what we've turned it into, that, you know, that the real sweetness is money. But actually the real sweetness is love for God. That was the original sweetness. And now people have run after money and so many things, become frustrated, become so frustrated. But the good thing is, out of that frustration, then we turn back to God. You know, so that's, you can't escape God. We try to go away from God, but we end up becoming so frustrated and confused and turn back. You know, so it's nothing to worry about. It's just sometimes we have to come down a little bit before we go up again, like that. So Krishna's plan is ultimately to bring us back to the spiritual world, you know. So we run after so many things and we realize, oh, no, that didn't really do it for me. No, that didn't give me the taste that I was after. It wasn't sweet. I was thinking it was going to be sweet, but it ended up becoming bitter. So the real sweetness is said to be Krishna's lotus feet. Krishna's lotus feet exude this like nectarine honey dripping from Krishna's lotus feet. That's why there's so many bees hovering around Krishna's lotus feet. It's like sweeter than honey. That's what we're really after. I'm very excited. Now I've got these lotus buds growing here, lotus buds, and they're just about to pop open.
Oh,
So maybe after the rain we're getting today, when I wake up in the morning, I might see these lotus flowers opening.
Bhaktimala, I heard you are visiting in January. You'll see that lotus.
Yeah, you might see the lotus flowers. All the bees hovering around.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, you both take care. Lovely to see you both. I'm glad it worked out and the Skype stayed together for us.
Thank you.